us to record. Yes. So would ask you to click on that exit slip on the agenda as well, so that you can give us feedback about today's session, but also help us think about our next session. So I will, Amanda, I'll send you an email now. And Mary, I'm going to let you kind of kick us off if that's okay.
Okay, and you want to send that email to Diane Wade?
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay.
Yes.
I got it.
Oh, she got it. Great. Wonderful. Well, good morning, everyone. I'm Mary Evans, and I work here at the Center for Gifted Studies. And we love working with GREC and the GT Network. And we think that we have put together a very interesting and informative agenda for today, with lots of information and things that you can take back to your schools. And because this agenda is jam-packed, I'm going to get right to it. First up, we are pleased to have Ms. Jessie Thompson with us. She is the coordinator of gifted education in the Jefferson County Public Schools. And we have been working with JCPS, the Center for Gifted Studies has, for several years. And we have had 3 cohorts of teachers receive their endorsement through WKU. And one of the questions that was asked at the end of last session was, how do you get more teachers interested in getting their endorsement? What can districts do to facilitate that? So I have asked Jessie Thompson to come talk to you all for a few minutes about how this is working in Jefferson County, and hopefully that'll maybe spark some ideas and discussion of what could happen in your district. So I'm going to turn it over to Jessie.
Right. Thanks, Dr. Evans. And also I have Tiffany Smith here also. She is our academic coach in Jefferson County for Gifted. So in Jefferson County, you know, we are based in Louisville. We are the largest district in the state of Kentucky. So we have a lot of challenges when it comes to meeting the needs of our gifted students. And honestly, even making sure that our teachers are aware of how to facilitate for our gifted students, and with the identification, the service delivery options, the equity piece, all of that. So as Mary said, this is our 3rd cohort of teachers that are actually getting their endorsement through WKU Center for Gifted Studies. I know one of the questions that she asked me was if I could talk about the funding side of it, because that's the big thing. So we do pay the tuition for these students, these teachers, to actually go through their 4 classes. The bulk of our budget comes from Title IV. So we utilize Title IV money on the professional development side to get these teachers endorsed. Any additional funds that we might need, if there's not enough in our Title IV for that particular area, we utilize our gifted general fund, which does come to the gifted office. So that's how over the past 3 years, we've been able to pay for these students to get their endorsement. Typically, each one of our cohorts has about 40 students. So the great thing is, at the end of each summer, we now have 40 students who are able to take the praxis and who are then able to become endorsed. And then they can either choose to stay at their school level and provide support at their school level, or if we do have some openings on the district side, we look for those people to apply for that. So that's the main way that we utilize the funds, is again Title IV, and then any additional funds that we need comes from our just general budget that we have. The benefit of having all of these teachers endorsed is we keep calling ourselves a small but mighty office. It's myself as the gifted coordinator, my clerk, Ashton, and then it's Tiffany. We are the only 3 in the district office for our district, and being as large as we are, that's not a lot. That's not a lot of support. We do have 3 gifted itinerant teachers. We used to have 4, but we actually stole Tiffany from that to have her come over as our coach so that she is with us full time. So we do have 3 teachers now, I'm sorry, who each support 4 elementary schools. So they are in one elementary school 1 day a week, and then they go to another elementary school, and so on and so forth. While this is not the best model, we've been able to reach 16 elementary schools. Now, granted, we have about 90 in Jefferson County, so it is a small drop in the bucket, which is why we utilize the cohort and the students getting their endorsement, because not only are they elementary teachers getting it, but we've got middle and high school. We are trying to transition to having more coaches so that we do have more district support within Jefferson County.
What'd you say?
And that's where the
Yeah.
endorsement can come into play. Those that have gone through the cohort with Dr. Evans and the Center for Gifted Studies can apply to become coaches for us so that we get even more support out there. But I think that's mainly what Dr. Evans wanted me to talk about. There are no downfalls. I do know in her email, she said any pitfalls that there might be. There aren't any. I do tell anybody that is signing up for the classes, and y'all know this because you've gotten your gifted endorsement, they are not easy classes, and they have to be prepared and ready to understand how gifted works and all the intricate details of a gifted student. So WKU does a fantastic job at preparing these teachers for it. I actually participated last year and went through the practicum and everything to see what it was like, and so that I can go on to get my master's in gifted education. But our teachers, when they were doing that 2-week practicum, they said, I always thought the gifted kids were the easy kids. And then when they taught them for 2 weeks, they came to realize, as you all know, they are not the easy kids at all. And they don't have many differences than the other side of the bell curve. And it was eye-opening for them. And it also supplied them with resources to utilize when they get back to their home school. They've become advocates at their school for gifted identification and services. They've started serving on their school-based selection committee. So the word is getting out there. And the best way to do that is to get them endorsed, and having that partnership with the Center for Gifted Studies is what's allowed us to carry through and to do that.
So what questions do you all have? I would say, as you're thinking of your questions, that the key to making this happen is getting administrator support. You have to convince your administrators that this is important for your school, for your district, and then they have a lot of control over those funds and deciding how those can be used. And if they can be convinced that this is something that needs to happen in your district, then there is some funding available that can support this.
Dr. Evans, I did drop my email down into the chat just in case anybody does have any questions about funding, or if they just have any questions in general about how we're utilizing that, feel free to email me to reach out. But Dr. Evans hit the nail on the head. It takes that support from your administration, obviously coming from the top down. The great thing is we have that support in JCPS now. So that's how we're able to use a lot of that Title IV funding so that we can help pay for this endorsement, so that our teachers don't have to take on the financial burden of it. They do have to pay for their praxis, but everything else, all of their tuition, it is covered by JCPS. The only thing that they do is they sign what's called a professional commitment form. I probably should have mentioned that earlier, where they basically agree to stay in JCPS for 3 years. And if they choose to leave JCPS before those 3 years are up, then it is prorated, and we do ask back for that tuition. But I will say the Center for Gifted Studies does a fantastic deal in regards to what we are paying for those classes. I have never seen anything that phenomenal. My husband, who worked in colleges for over 20 years, he's like, it is a steal, and it is fantastic based on the instruction that they're receiving and what Jefferson County is actually having to pay out of pocket. It is more than worth it.
Well, and actually, when we started with the first cohort, WKU did do a special tuition break for a cohort of 40 from JCPS, but now WKU has lowered graduate level tuition so much that it's not even a special tuition break for the cohort. Now it's just what anybody would pay. So it's not that expensive. It's, what is it, $300 and something a credit hour. So, you know, that's not terribly expensive for 12 hours of graduate credit. Anyone have any questions? I know that Jessie can't stay with us too long because she has some other commitments in her district. But if you do think of questions for her, don't hesitate to email her. She is very responsive and will get back to you. Thank you so much, Jessie, for sharing with us. It's always good to have our friends from JCPS with us, and hope the rest of your day goes really well.
So Jessie, before you go, we would like to take a screenshot of all of the faces so we can post on social media. We want you to be a part of it, Jessie, too. So if everyone would please do us a great favor of put your camera on so we can take a family photo. And I'll need to take 2 family photos because we have, thank you so much, guys. All right, I'm going to count to 3 and I'm going to ask you to be ready. 1, 2, 3. There we go. Now I'm going to go to the next page because we can't fit all on one page. Was it great? All right. So 1, 2, 3. Thank you so much. Thank you, Jessie. That was incredible. And, I think when people have time to think about it, they might want you to share maybe some of your commitment forms and some of those kind of things, if you're willing, or at least talk about them and see how, because those are the kinds of pieces that make this work. All those underpinnings of this is what make it work. So thank you so
No,
much.
absolutely. Like I said, I dropped my email in the chat. Dr. Evans always has my email. And if you have questions, comments, concerns, any of that, if you just want to talk through it, please feel free to reach out.
Well, thank you so much. And we will move on now to our next presentation. And although this face is not new to Western and not new to many of you, Jennifer Wilson is new to the Center for Gifted Studies. And we are so glad to have her as a part of our team. She is the coordinator of TIP Kentucky. And she's going to tell you all about that. You had a little bit of information at those of you who were at our last network meeting, but she's going to bring you up to date with the latest things. So take it away, Jennifer.
Thank you. I appreciate your inviting me today. And it's really, really nice to be able to, I'm seeing several names and several faces that I've been talking with over the past 3 months. As Mary said, I just started here. I've been at WKU for years, but I'm very, very excited to be a part of the Center for Gifted Studies, and it's just phenomenal. The partnerships across the state that they have with all of you, and I'm just happy to be here. This little presentation I've got may be a little bit redundant for some of you, so some of the things you'll have to bear with me because I have new people who may not have heard some of this material, but we have been doing some promotion out there and had a couple of sessions. So a little bit of this may be, am I able to show my PowerPoint, Jamie?
Yes, you should be able to share screen.
Okay. I'm not seeing a screen sharer.
Do you see down at the, if you hover down toward the bottom, do you see it and you hover?
Oh, there we go. Got it. There we go. Can we see it?
Yes.
Excellent. All right. As we all know in this group, I'm speaking to people that are much more informed about Duke TIP's closing than other groups. Sadly, when they closed, it left a lot of us concerned, but the good news is Dr. Julia Roberts and her wonderful team here at the center at the time went into full-fledged action to get our own TIP Kentucky program going. And I'm so excited to say that we finally are up. We have had our launch at the beginning of this year in terms of allowing schools to register. And of course, the overarching goal is not much different than what it was when Duke TIP was doing the talent identification program, which is identifying and supporting the students and talent that's within the state of Kentucky. I'm going to move this little bar here. There's 3 components that I like to just articulate about the TIP Kentucky program. Of course, the above level assessment and the extensive reporting that educators as well as families will receive is a huge element of TIP Kentucky. And the programming element will come from, of course, the center has been doing programming literally for decades. So there's a rich history there of programming, and there's a natural tie-in, but it's not only just the center's programming here at WKU, there's a lot of programming throughout the state, and the reports that the families will receive from the IXL testing will allow for educators as well as families to take a look at the programming within our center as well as other programs in the state to help enrich the students. And we'd like to continue with the third component of the recognition ceremonies. I don't know that we're at a place this year to start that, but hopefully very soon we'll get the recognition up and rolling. The benefits are, of course, the above level testing, the reporting. One thing that some of the educators may not be aware of, that this particular testing will allow for science scores for students in the 4th through 6th grades. And often that's a challenge for some school districts. So that would be nice to have for students who are really achieving high achievers or high potential. I love this chart. I was telling Mary about it, that I just wanted to share this with all of you because I just feel it's a very good visual when you're talking with families about why should we do above level testing. Well, when you're looking at the bell chart on the left, that 95th to 99th percentile, or even it's going as low as 90th, the top 10% is where the students that would be taking this testing are sitting. And they're hitting the ceiling, so to speak, with a lot of their grade level materials. But if you give those students in the 4th through 6th grade, for example, an above level test that's meant for junior high students, or that's designed for junior high students, your bell chart is going to really be different, as is reflected in the bell chart curve on the right. And I just think that is a wonderful way to understand that these students need differentiation as well as students in the other 90% of the bell curve. And this chart really illustrates where they can have some suggestions, and the reports help with that greatly. Excuse me. The testing that we're using is called IXL. You've probably heard me or somebody in the center mention this test before. We have partnered with the Bell and Blank Center at the University of Iowa, and they have been doing testing for many, many years. They have at least 2 decades established of reporting, so this is nothing new to them. They are very well versed in this, have a rich history. And many of the materials that are in the IXL were also materials from the Explore, if some of you remember utilizing the Explore. There are 4 subject areas: math, science, English, and reading. On the actual reporting system, they will put the English and reading in a similar score. So it looks like 3 categories. Just some basics, because I've been getting a lot of questions about just some of the simple nuts and bolts of the IXL test. The test itself is designed for 8th graders, but it's meant for students in grades 4 through 6 to take. These students, while we don't like to have a hardcore cutoff, the top 10% or the 90th percentile in at least one subject area is where these students should be sitting. And the teachers and coordinators know best. You know your students better than anyone. So, excuse me, I had a teacher ask me about a student and said, oh, they're hovering at 89%, and you are the best judge of this student, not so.
It's be 9. Yeah, no.
Sorry about that. I've got a choke. And where and when the test will be taken, teachers will register to give these at their schools on a date that's convenient for them. I will say that you need to allot a window of 3 to 4 weeks. And as you can read on the chart, we're talking about $49 per student. Students who qualify for free and reduced lunch would take the test for $22. The test is actually 2.5 hours with a break in between, but we encourage the coordinators to allot for 3 hours. And you do have the option to take the test within 2 days if 1 month of time is not available for your school system. There is a sample test, and the sample test is not something that the student needs to study for. It's really the main goal to familiarize the benefits. Thank you, Mary's bringing me a water. I'm choking on my coffee here. Sorry about that. I've been boosted. I don't have COVID.
Now that's service, that Mary is that kind of co-host that she can bring you water. Now that's incredible service.
And of course, the benefit of the sample test is to allow students and the schools to have a little wiggle room to test out the computers, make sure everything's functioning. Here's a sample of the English question. So it just lets the student read a little passage, and then they have the option to pick the best choice. And that just gets them familiar. The sample test has maybe 10, as you can see, questions. There's 10 questions per category. So it's just to familiarize. The test results, as I mentioned, are actually with Ideal Solutions.
Okay.
Jennifer, I think you're on mute.
How did that happen?
I have absolutely nothing to do with STAR. I wish I did.
How long have I been muted?
If you go back one slide and finish what you were saying there, I think you should be good.
Thanks. The testing results are using Ideal Solutions, which is also developed with the Bell and Blank program. And as I mentioned, they have more than 2 decades of experience with establishing a reporting system. There's an individual student report as well as a teacher report, the student scores, and there's wonderful charts and graphs as well as copy to read about the student scores. And there are comparison charts to the 8th graders level to see where they fall within that, as well as other talented students within their own grade. So the student will see their scores, or the families will see their scores, and comparisons to if it's a 6th grader, similar 6th graders, as well as the 8th grade. So there's a lot of wonderful data there. There is a breakdown with science, math, and English reading together. And I'll just give you a sample here of this pyramid of options. It gives you an idea of where your student would fall. For example, maybe your student is in math, a triangle, and they'll show you where the triangle is. That would be in the academically talented category, and there'll be some suggestions such as general enrichment in extracurricular programs for that level. Perhaps their English is, off the chart and they're up in the green area. So they will give you other suggestions that are more accelerative for that particular subject category. And of course, the educators receive a wonderful report for all the students that you've collectively tested together. And there's a lot of flexibility there. You can look at comparison charts. There will be the highest to the lowest scores. You can sort. There will also be a pictorial representation of the pyramid for the classroom. These will not be given to the group report, is not given to the families, obviously. The families just receive their individual students report, but the teachers get the collective report. And the exciting part, you can now register your students online through Tip Kentucky. If you just click on our website, register for testing. There is a bar, and it's a very simple process. I know Hannah was on here earlier, Hannah England, and she's already, she was our pilot program last spring, and this process went very smooth, I believe. Hannah, hopefully it all went very smoothly for her. And if you have more questions, there's a lot of nitty gritty in terms of there's opportunity to send the link to the family, or if you want to register all the students as the coordinator, you have that option. You also have the option, some schools choose to pay it in one lump sum. Other schools send out the payment option to each individual student that's signing up. So there's flexibility on how you sign up the students, whether you want to do it as a school district or if you want to send it out. But the location does need to be named, the date, and the proctor. And as I mentioned, you do need to have a window of at least 3 to 4 weeks so that there is time for the testing center. They want to make sure there's somebody on the testing center end at Bell and Blank Center to help you through the process, and that's available the day you do your testing. We are still working on partnership with ACT for 7th and 8th grades. The goal is to, obviously, we want to get the students registered through TIP Kentucky, and then you would take a test much like Duke TIP did at a testing center nearby, and then the results and the interpretation scores would go through TIP Kentucky. At this point, since we are not quite there yet with our partnership and the logistics, we're having students just work straight through ACT.org if they're in the 7th and 8th grade. One thing I do want to mention that's very much tied into TIP Kentucky is our Project Launch Plus. This is a wonderful opportunity for select 6th graders. We have a partnership with Johns Hopkins, supported by the U.S. Department of Education, Javits Grant, and the focus is specifically on 6th graders who have fewer opportunities. And what we mean by fewer opportunities, perhaps it could be a student who's challenged financially, the family, or it could be a situation where the family lives in a rural area and they've just not had opportunity to get their student in for enrichment or programming that may be beneficial. Regardless of what the reasoning is for their few opportunities, we would love to get them involved in this particular project. We had our first camp last summer, but it came very quickly. There was a very short turnaround to get students for the camp, as our grant had just been shifted over to the Center for Gifted Studies, and we had 3 or 4 weeks to get it all organized. So this summer, we're going to have a much larger camp, and the partnership is really going to be with the schools. We really want to, if you have students within your school district, and I know you all do, that have limited opportunities due to finances or maybe a rural living situation, we would love to work with you. At this point, we do not have our registration up, but we're getting really close to getting the process put into place. So if you are interested, you are more than welcome to email me, and I will put you on our Javits Grant list to make sure to communicate with you. There will be more coming out. And I noticed I've got some questions in the, oh yeah, this is actually for students that are 6th graders now, but this grant is 3 years, this summer and 2 additional summers. So if you have a rising 6th grader, they would be eligible the following year for the camp. And in addition to the camp, there's also opportunity for students. Even if they don't do the camp, there's opportunity for the same group of students to do above level testing, the IXL test, as well as have educational and informational emails sent to their family box to encourage them about opportunities that they could utilize. Did I miss? This would be, oh, Do we have some more questions about that? I'm not seeing the full chat box.
Yes, Amanda, there's a question that says, will districts pay the fee or will the students or parents be responsible for paying the fees?
For IXL in general or for the JABIT?
I believe that question came in around IXL, but I invite anyone to unmute themselves and ask the question themselves too.
It's really up to the school district how they want to handle that. I've talked with some places that say their school district has some money to help with this, and some other school districts are just sending the link for the parent to pay for the testing. So it's going to vary school by school in terms of the IXL. Now the JABIT grant opportunity I'm talking about is all covered through the U.S. Department of Education grant. So that opportunity would be no cost to the participants. Anything else?
Jennifer, the other question that I saw is from Diane. When you were talking about students that you might identify to take IXL, you mentioned the 90th percentile, and she's wondering if that is the 90th percentile on an assessment in the last year, or could it be 2 years ago, or what's the recommendation for that?
Diane, that is a very good question, and I may need to get back to you on that. Tyler, have you heard any information on how long ago? I was thinking within the past year, but it may depend as well on.
Diane, this is purely my own opinion, and Mary, you can jump in here if you have something different. TIP Kentucky is all about our overarching goal is identifying and serving talent. So I think that if you find a student that performed at the 90th percentile 2 years ago, but they're maybe not doing that right now, and you see that talent is maybe there, it's worth going ahead and just seeing, are they performing on this above level assessment? I don't see that it's going to hurt anything that it was 2 or 3 years ago.
I concur. I think this whole grant is about including more students, finding students that need these opportunities, removing barriers.
I have more to the actual slides, but I know you've got a really tight schedule. But I did want to just quickly mention, am I already over, Mary?
You're fine. You're absolutely fine.
I'm more than happy to share just a couple of things that are coming up since it's very relevant to everyone in this group. We have our Super Saturdays that is starting the 1st of February, and there are still openings available. So if you want to give an extra little plug to your school systems, if you know there might be some families still interested, it does show on our website classes that are full. So there are several that are full, but there are quite a few 4th through 6th grade in particular that have opportunities. So feel free if you know some students who might be interested. It's 3 weeks. The first 3 Saturdays in February, wonderful opportunity for kids if they're wanting some enrichment. We also have an Idea Festival coming up February 16th. And I know that some of you have your school signed up, and we thank you. It's a wonderful day. It's a workshop. What day of the week is that, Mary? Is that Wednesday?
I believe it's a Wednesday.
Yeah, the students come to campus, and it's not just for groups. You can sign up as an individual as well, but certainly you can bring a whole group from your school if you would like to. They've got wonderful speakers in the morning, and then in the afternoon, there's a bunch of hands-on, minds-on activities, and it really covers the spectrum. You've got scientists, you've got artists, lots of different leaders in different professions, and it's a wonderful opportunity for children to explore, innovate, create. And we've just really gotten great reviews over that day. So that is coming up. I don't even know if there's a cutoff for that. I guess when it fills up, but at this point it's not full. And we also just opened our registration for some of the summer programming. Tyler, have we opened it for every single program?
No, it's open for Scats and Vampy right now. And then Explore and Innovate will come later. And then we are working on a registration process for Camp Discover, which is the Javits camp that Jennifer was mentioning.
So if you have some more questions about the Javits grant, I threw out a lot of information regarding that. We would love to include your school system. And I do have a few people down, start with a list started. Of course, we will inform all the schools there for the camp. The grant is talking about school districts within a 3-hour radius. So there's that too.
And
course,
Jennifer,
that-
did you tell how many students, how many spots you have in the camp, in Camp Discover? Because you can take quite a few.
Yes, we can take quite a few in Camp Discover. 100 and, is it 57? I believe it's. We have tweaked it a little bit this year because last year was a very small group. So we're allowed to bring in several more this year, as well as the next couple of years. But it'll fill up. It's a residential program. They come to campus, they stay here for a week, the week of July 10th, and they will explore. They have an opportunity to take coding class, some different STEM related classes. Last year we had someone who did a law mock trial type course. There's a lot of wonderful things that we've got planned. Since it is going to be larger, there also may be a more robust selection of classes to take. And again, this is through the Javits grant, so we'll keep you posted.
Jennifer, there's a question here from Amanda asking about the slides. We will post a PDF of almost all of the slides. There are a few of them that we don't have permission to share the images on. So we'll just take those out and post the PDF link in the agenda that Jamie shared.
Thank you for your time. Oh, one other thing I want to say, I'm going to throw this out there because I would love to talk with any of your school systems. I met with Hannah's group in Russell County, and I'm more than open to doing a virtual session with your families or with any of the educators in your school districts. Feel free to reach out. I would love to get the word out, not only about TIP, but also the Javits grant opportunity. And I'm willing to travel. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Jennifer. And Jennifer is going to be with us the rest of the session, I believe. So if questions come up, be sure and put them in the chat or send them to her email. This is so many exciting opportunities here for your students. Okay, I am going to share my screen now. Okay, what I am doing is at the feedback from our last session, people were asking for ideas, very practical ways to differentiate for students, things that they can take back to their school to share with their teachers, and kind of like, what can I do tomorrow kinds of things. And so I've always liked those kinds of ideas too as a teacher. And so I have put together a PowerPoint, and I've tried to make it so that you could just hand it to a teacher and it would be self-explanatory. They would be able to figure out how to use this strategy in their classroom. I'm envisioning it as maybe like an itinerant teacher, a resource teacher might take a look at this PowerPoint and try these strategies with their students, and then they could then share it with classroom teachers, and they would have student samples that they could share with the classroom teachers, because the strategies that I'm sharing are good for all students, and they are easily differentiated to meet the needs of that wide range of students that are in the classroom. So I call this Extending Thinking for Gifted Students. This book, Making Thinking Visible, and I've put the complete information about the resource at the end of the slides. has 21 different thinking routines. I'm probably going to say thinking strategies, but they call them routines. And they come from Harvard's Project Zero. Lots of research based in anything that that Project Zero does. So you know that it's good stuff. And their idea is that we need to teach students thinking routines. And they use this word visible. And I love this because it's, you know, how we need to help kids really see their thinking so that they can then discuss and reflect on it. And it's that discussion and reflect on it that then helps with the deeper understanding. The first thinking routine that I'm going to share with you is called compass points. And so, you know, there's a great visual to help students remember this. And the purpose is for learners to consider a topic from different perspectives. You know, it is so important, and we see this every day, people need to be able to get out of their own little mind and see things from the perspectives of others prior to taking a stand on it. So this really prepares kids to decide, how do I really feel about this issue before they express their opinion? So here are the compass points. It has the NSEW, that normally would stand for north, south, east, and west, but this is what it stands for with this thinking routine. E stands for excitements. What excites you about the topic? What's the upside? What are the positives, the good things? The W stands for worries. What worries you about this topic? What are the negatives? What's the downside? The N, and this is, you know, creating opportunities for higher level thinking. What do you need to know or find out about this topic? You know, where the E and the W are more maybe from your gut or experiences or whatever, but needs gets them to thinking about, maybe I don't know everything about this topic. Before I really take a stand and form an opinion, what do I need to know or find out? And then the S stands for what stance are you going to take? What are your next steps that you need to evaluate this topic? And we know that when we get students at the evaluation level of Bloom's, that they're thinking at higher levels. And then what suggestions do you have at this point? This picture is not very good because of the light, but I always like to have some classroom examples, and maybe the teachers, once they use it, can replace this slide with some examples from their own classroom. But some ways that teachers use it is to make that a large poster with the compass symbol and just have that up in the classroom. So that's to trigger students' thinkings of, you know, these are the different aspects I need to be thinking about. Some teachers like have a poster for each one of the points on the compass, and students may go individually around to those different posters with Post-it notes and respond to it, or they may work in groups to do that. One of the suggestions in the book was talking about that it's often a good idea to ask students to make an initial judgment or evaluation of an idea before doing the compass points. You know, just what is your initial view on this? Then have them go through that ESW, the different points, and then come back and see if their stance has changed based on the information that they've gained, which of course is ideal. That's what we want to happen. Either confirm what you believed or find out that there's a better way. There are, you know, various worksheets and things that you can do with this. This I found online at the Sadler School. And if you want students to work individually, or if you want them to think through these points before they're actually working in a group, then that might be a tool that teachers might use. So the tips for using the compass points, as with any strategy or routine, it's always good to model with the whole group and record their responses for the entire class to see so that they can build on each other's ideas. It's easiest, of course, to begin with what's exciting about this issue or positive about this idea before moving to the worrisome and the need to know. And then after the initial group discussion, many times it's good to ask students to write down their individual stance or suggestion before sharing that, so that they really, what do I believe? And they're not quite so influenced about their peers, what their peers think. This routine can be used from primary through high school. Here are just some topics for Compass Points. Of course, you want topics that have more than one perspective that different sides would take. So should recess time be increased? Of course, the easy thing for students to do is to look at that from, a perspective of a child or a student. But, what does my teacher think about this? With all this, she's curriculum to teach, or what do my parents think about this? Or so getting them to look at the different side. Here's a fun one. Should students be allowed to bring pets to school? Are video games good or bad for you? Should digital devices replace paper and books in school? Should all students be allowed to play on the same sports teams, regardless of gender? Should animal testing be banned? Should the government tackle global warming, or should people change their lifestyles just on their own? So you can kind of see, as you look at these, I kind of see that the younger children would start over here on the left column and deal with these. And as we move through this to middle and high school, as you all are thinking about this strategy, you might want to drop in the chat, what's an idea that you would have for an issue that would be great to do this thinking routine with? Here, I get to work with students in the summer in Camp Explore and Camp Innovate when I'm available. And so this is a strategy that I've actually tried out, and we use the one about the video games. What are the different perspectives about the playing of video games? And so, of course, starting with the E, here are some things that children have said. They're fun to play. They can improve hand-eye coordination. I'm sure somebody, they've heard that somewhere. It's good competition. You practice and get better. You can learn to solve problems. You get faster at making decisions. It improves your attention span. You can make friends with people who like to play what you like to play. They had a little bit more trouble coming up with the worries, but some of them that probably are not as into the video game playing came on strong in this section. So what worries us about this? You might want to play more and get addicted. Some of the video games are violent. Some kids might act out bad things in video games. If you play too much, you might not get enough exercise. Some kids really get upset if they're losing. You might spend too much time alone and not be social. And then what do you need to know? What do you need to find out if you've got these worries? Well, how do they affect your brain? How much time is too much? How old should you be before you play video games? How come we can't play video games at school? How can I convince my mom to let me play more? And then what did they decide that they should do next? What were their next steps to evaluate this? Well, they said, we need to find out what the scientists that study kids and videos think. Someone said there should be no general statements because kids are different. What's too much for one kid is fine for another, like my brother and me. I need to convince my parents it's okay to spend some time playing video games on school nights. Good luck with that one. Make video games that turn off when you have been playing too long, so everyone is safe. So, opportunities to be creative coming in here. So that's one thinking routine from that book that you might find to be something that your teachers could use and that students would benefit from. I have a second strategy from a different book to share with you. Probably several of you have been to some sessions at Cage or other places that Dr. Richard Cash has presented. And he is an expert on differentiation, and the full information about this book is also at the end of the slide presentation. And he has a strategy called Cross Impact Matrix. It's a critical thinking strategy, and it is more advanced. Normally when we think of doing comparing and contrasting with kids, the T-chart is a very common and a great graphic organizer we use, and we're familiar with Venn diagrams. And as you take those from 2 to 3 to 4 to more circles, those become very challenging. And just like those, the cross impact matrix can be differentiated from being a simpler way to compare and contrast to adding more variables and it becoming very complex. Dr. Cash recommends that using this strategy, you analyze more than 3 variables to find the relationships between them. And this strategy considers multiple interacting issues or situations. This strategy can be adapted to just about any subject or topic. And here's what the cross impact matrix looks like. And the question is, what impact do the variables across the top column, the first row, have with each of the variables across the bottom? So what impact do the columns have with the rows? So let me show you some examples. How do I implement this? Well, you choose 3 or 4 variables you want students to compare and contrast. You create your graphic organizer to help them frame it, and then you integrate it into the lesson. I think this strategy is one that teachers will really like because they can see how they can integrate it into their content. Again, this can be used with primary through intermediate to middle school to high school. Here's an example in the area of language arts of a literature example with the 3 little pigs. And so across the top, we have the first little pig, the second little pig, the third little pig, and the big bad wolf. And we're wanting to know what impact, what's the relationship, what's the interaction with each other. So in this cross impact matrix, the columns are the same as the rows, but that's not always true, as you will see in the next example. I think the one that's the most interesting is the interaction of the big bad wolf with all of them. So the big bad wolf, his interaction with pig number 1, he's mean and blows his house down. And with pig number 2, he has to work harder, but he blows his house down too. With pig number 3, he gets frustrated because he can't blow down that house. And he tries going down the chimney, and then he ends up being wolf stew. So, this is a fun way for kids to compare and contrast and see all of those interacting relationships among the different characters. Then to take it on up to middle school, let's say it's a science class, you're learning about oil spills. You might start out by having them do a quick write, to find out what they know about oil spills. They might watch a video. They might look at a National Geographic poster and then do the matrix. I just put a picture of the poster because I got really excited when I found out I've always loved National Geographic magazine and those beautiful posters that are included. Well, those are available online. So you can just actually pull them up and, have them for your students to use. And I hadn't realized that. And my goodness, look at the information, the content from those beautiful posters. So here's a cross impact matrix based on oil spills, and a key to getting kids to really think. We always know when we ask that why question that that's going to trigger higher level thinking. And so we don't want them to just describe the relationship, but to explain why it would have an impact to take it on up to the next level. And, a way to differentiate with this, you could have some students do the entire cross impact matrix, or you could shorten it. You could have someone just do 1 column and 1 row, or 2 columns and 1 row, or 2 columns and 2 rows. And you of course can vary the level of difficulty with your different variables. These are small and don't show up very well. These were sent to me and then I did screenshots of them, but just to show how the chart would kind of look filled out. And then, of course, teachers are always very concerned about, how to grade this, how am I going to score this? So here's an example of how you could decide what is it in that cross impact matrix that you want to emphasize with the students and give them credit for. And of course, we see how that explaining the why would do that. Here are some quotes from students, about why they like using the cross impact matrix. One student says, the most important thing I learned from this activity is there can be more than one correct answer, so I don't have to stress to find the one correct answer. I liked having to think harder than normal. That sounds like a gifted kid. Usually all I have to do is find the answer straight in the text, then write it down. This activity required me to infer and make predictions, something I don't normally do. And of course, we want them to do more of that. Teachers like it because it promotes higher level thinking, encourages creativity, allows many different answers. It's easy to differentiate, and it's applicable to real life problems. Then here's the resources. I even included how that you could get that beautiful poster. And so that's the end of this slide presentation. Does anyone have any questions about either one of these routines or strategies? Well, I hope that it will be very effective and usable, and that you'll have the opportunity to share it with teachers so students can benefit from these strategies.
You know, Mary,
Okay.
I just say I put this in the text because I know a lot of people on this call have a dual role. They have so they support students and they need strategies that would support student thinking, but also we support the adults. And I was just thinking about that, the duality of your matrix there. Oftentimes when we're presenting, strategies or just anything to teachers, this might be a tool for us to use with teachers when they think about and look at the interactions and things. That I've just been thinking about that. You've been really helpful for my own thinking too. And that other people might be thinking the same kind of thing. But any questions for Mary? Because Mary will be on here. She's going to stay with.
Yes, I will be with you.
Thank you, Mary.
We are now ready for Austin Vale. Austin, are you on here? Austin Vale. I know he had a tight schedule in his school this morning, but he thought he could hop on and talk to us about.
I don't see his name on the participant list unless he's listed under another name. We could.
Okay.
There he is, Mary.
Oh, did you just hop on? Austin, are you with us?
Yes. How are you?
Wonderful. Thank you. Well, welcome, Austin. Austin is a drama teacher at Brenda Cowan Elementary School in Fayette County. He's also the Beta Club sponsor, the Family Community Engagement Chair. He's the SBDM rep at his school. He's even on the board of directors for school-based decision-making councils for Region 5. And who knows what all else Austin does. But he was kind enough to take a few moments of his time this morning to talk to us about his experiences with drama and how to find kids with talent in drama and then how to serve them once you find them.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Like she said, I am Austin Vale. I am a two-time graduate from WKU. Recently finished my master's in gifted ed this past summer and currently teach here in Fayette County. My school is a little bit different than a lot of the traditional schools, whereas my school is really focused on arts integration and taking arts not only within our special areas, but also taking it into our Common Core classes and ensuring that students are displaying mastery in a multiple ways. So I am going to share my screen very quickly. Let's see. And I just have a couple of things that I am going to share with you today, again, about not only drama identification and making sure we are able to service those students, but also how we can take those drama students and be able to service them in other ways as far as arts integration. Because I know a lot of times for our resource teachers, our schedules are jam-packed. We don't have a lot of time to necessarily maybe pull each individual content area that falls under visual and performing arts. So then it becomes tricky as to finding out how we can service those students while also being able to service our other students who might not be identified within drama or who might not have those interests within the visual and performing arts. So I'll share with a little bit about that, and then some resources that I use not only in my classroom, but also that I give teachers in our own school to be able to implement within their content areas as well. So some things, two of my favorite quotes ever that I kind of live by, and actually one of them's from my principal. I found it out from my principal that I currently have. It's his email signature. So we see it every time, and it really pushes that arts integration focus for our staff. Is before a child talks, they sing. Before they write, they draw. As soon as they stand, they dance. Art is fundamental to human expression. So we know that it ties very easily with all of our Common Core areas. And it's also a way that we are able to allow those students who maybe they are underachieving within their classroom because they are not able to display their knowledge within their classroom in the way that they are gifted in. So being able to bring those students in, adjust our curriculum or adjust our assessment to show our students that we are allowing them that expression within our classroom, and then they are able to demonstrate that knowledge for us. So I'm going to, whoops, there we go. So collaboration is really big at my school as far as being able to service our drama students. So our resource teacher and I work hand in hand, and I know that a lot of schools, they don't have a drama teacher. So they don't have that teacher that is able to sit with the GT resource teacher and supply some additional resources that might be beneficial for those students who are identified in gifted areas for drama. However, what we do is we subscribe to a couple of different resources, one particularly being Drama Notebook. It is a website that can be found super easy. It's super cheap, which is also awesome. I know we have our school pay for that resource, and then we are able to actually pull resources off of there. And then they also send us weekly emails of things that they are doing within their organization that you might be able to implement further into your classroom. And they kind of scaffold that instruction for our GT students as well. So it's an awesome resource. And if there's any resource that you pull from this, I would certainly recommend Drama Notebook. So I'll put that in the chat at the end if you would like to look into that. But my GT resource teacher and I collaborate heavily, and we have a Google Drive. This is not my Google Drive, but this is an example of one where we go in and we actually share those resources. If I see something that I see my students are working on in class, I go and I put that in, and then we meet and we're able to pull from those resources so that she is pulling my students, and they're not necessarily just receiving remedial services as far or gifted services for maybe performance, where we're working more heavily with technical theater in class. So we kind of stay aligned in ensuring that we are kind of providing those gifted services for those students at the same time that I'm doing it within my classroom. So we do that through our PLCs. We talk a lot about that, and we are also using that Google Drive for our students. This was something that really drove our focus at our school for implementation of arts integration once we were founded here 3 years ago. This is our third year that we are open. And so we saw that they were rising those test scores. And what we found is that within our area here in Fayette County, our student population, our test scores are very low. So what we wanted to do was find ways that we could collaborate with our classroom teachers and service those gifted students who were underachieving, but also provide services for those students who might not be achieving or hitting mastery because they simply they're not there. So integrating the arts and being able to help them rise, but then also providing a differentiated assessment for those students who are gifted in those areas and can then display content knowledge in that way. So within our school, we look at the district level of how we can provide stuff, not only in our classroom for GT, but also maybe you are really unsure about drama, but there's somebody in your district that is really, really talented and they have it all. And so what we've done is we've kind of seeked out those people, and then we create a Google Classroom for all of our GT drama students. And so we have that GT drama classroom on Google, and whether we're in this weird phase of NTI or in person, we are able to allow the students to go to that classroom and they're able to still receive those services even when they're not in school. So we've that has been an awesome resource for us as we're fluctuating between, are we in school, are we out of school, is the weather going to be terrible? So we really love using that, and we find all of those different resources from our teachers that are the professionals in the area, and it might not be there in education, but they might be teaching at the local university, and they have resources that they can share with us. And so we implement that, and we do talkbacks for those students, where they're able to actually talk with professionals in the field and ask those questions and learn about scenic design, lighting design. Because for drama, one of the big things that I talk about in our district is that it's not always performance. A lot of our students, they think about drama and they think about, I'm in the spotlight. That is not always our most gifted students that are in drama. In fact, a lot of my students currently, the student pool that I have, a lot of my students, yes, they have the literacy there and they're able to read fluently with expression. They're awesome, but their main giftedness is in technical theater and as far as scenic design and lighting design and things like that. And that's when I start to pull from the resources, because I'm certainly not a lighting designer. So I have to reach out and find those resources. And so we create that district classroom where our students are able to access, and all of our gifted teachers can go in and plug in information, as opposed to just one teacher at one building having to service their drama students. We're able to all collaborate together. And the hope is to move forward. Now, we are currently in the process of getting a director of fine arts. So our hope next is to kind of move forward in creating Zoom lessons that are able to be cited out from our GT rep who is within visual and performing arts to those students who are in our GT classrooms, but maybe we have a really special lesson this day, but this person can only be at one school at one time. Well, then we're able to implement Zoom now, the one amazing thing that came out of COVID, and then implement that, and now our students from all over the district are able to channel into that. And so we are really focused on trying to provide the same equitable opportunities for all of our GT drama students across the district, because like I said, my school is one of the 2 performing arts schools in Lexington that really focus heavily on drama. So we try to create resources for all of those schools. And then again, we always use our creative arts or special areas teachers to assist in that process. Now, I know I've talked a lot about, well, you use all these resources. So what are the resources and how do I put it into my class? And so I'm going to talk a little bit about first, if I'm pulling my GT drama students, because a lot of times our GT resource teacher is not the one who's pulling our drama students. In fact, I pull them. I have a different block for GT drama. So I try to pull those students during that time. And so these are some exercises that I use in my classroom. But then I've also am going to go in just a minute and talk about some things that I've done with GT students who maybe I have a mix, and I have all of my visual and performing arts students and a couple of my math students, and how we can work with all of those students and be servicing all of their gifted areas. So I'll talk about that as well. The first thing that I do, and this is kind of just in my general drama class that I teach, generally third through fifth grade. So those students who would identify as GT, not necessarily PTP at this point, but connecting the social studies to theater in regards to a wax museum. So I know this is one that our teachers love, because especially at that 5th grade level, when they are beginning to research all of these important historical figures, they're just regurgitating the information and not necessarily really truly understanding the life that those people lived and the decisions that they made that made the success, or maybe made the mistakes that made them important in history. And so what we do is I have the students come in, and this services those students who are not only gifted in drama, but social studies as well as writing. So I work with the students first to allow student choice to choose who it is in history. Maybe they already know about them, or maybe they've heard of their name and they know nothing about them. I allow them to choose from a list of about 50 important historical figures. Generally, I meet with my 5th grade teachers to say, who are the figures that are very important within your tested areas that you need assistance with? And so I work with those teachers to collaborate and create that list of 50. Once I have that list of 50, my students come in, they get to choose from that list of 50. And generally right now I'm finding that a lot of these students, they're all wanting to do Hamilton because it's in the news. It's crazy. We talk about in drama class a lot. And so that's what they're all wanting to do. However, I only allow one student to do each person. So we have a drawing. The students then get to say their selection. I ask them generally to choose their top 3 so that they have a fallback in case their person is already chosen. Once they have chosen that person, I give them a day to research information. General guiding questions. When was this person born? What did they do? Maybe some important people that they collaborated with during their time. How did they change American history? Whether that was for their country, for their organization, or for the world in general. And so then those students would then begin to research that and then fill out all of that important information. Now, I don't want them to then take that and then just regurgitate the information in a cute costume in front of a poster board. So then I take it a step further and implement writing. And we talk about what is a monologue, right? Because a lot of these students, they don't necessarily correlate speech and monologue as almost being one and the same. Yes, there's some things that are different, but what we're doing with this monologue might help you when you're running for the 5th grade president, right? And so we are working on creating this monologue, not necessarily a speech, where we take that experience that we have and we become that character. So what did I live through? And so one of the biggest things that I have with them is, Anne Frank grew up at this period. No, I grew up at this period. So you are now internally feeling that character, and you are not only regurgitating that information, but you are living that information. And so our students then send all of that out, and our students then line the halls with our presentations, and we allow the students from our lower levels, K through 2 generally, and then we have some 3, 4, and 5. We split them up, and they're able to go through the halls and actually meet these characters. And so once they press the button and they hear their short monologue, they then are able to ask questions. And so we take it a step further. So while you might have prepared this amazing monologue, do you know the history, the backstory of your character to answer the difficult higher order thinking questions that the kindergartner is probably going to ask you about your character? So it's really an in-depth process that the students are fully becoming that character and then able to teach the other students about those characters. And then, oh, I met Anne Frank when I was in the hall, right? So then that kindergartner who's now in 4th, 5th grade, they're learning about Anne Frank and they've met that character. So now they're able to connect even further because they've already met her. That's their best friend, right? So that is something that we have found has been a huge help with social studies. And so moving to the next one, literacy. This is the one that I think a lot of us are a little more comfortable with. And so I'm not going to spend a ton of time on connecting literacy to theater because this is the one that I feel like in our school especially, and I'm sure it's similar in many schools, is our teachers are able to implement readers theater. They're able to implement writing a script. But we want to take that a step further because yes, readers theater is servicing those students to be able to perform. However, what if we take it a step further and now you all are not only going to create your readers theater skit and perform it, but how can we add levels to this to make it unique? And the teacher kind of guiding them in that to create those levels to make interesting pictures, working on projection and those reading and listening skills, but also furthering that and now beginning to implement prop design, right? So what is a prop designer and what do they do? Okay, now I want you to create one important prop. If your character had one prop in this reader's theater, what would it be? Okay, now I want you to, with these supplies, STEM, I want to supply you with 10 different items. And with these items, you must create that prop that you had this amazing idea. You drew it out. It was awesome. Now we're going to give you another challenge and you have to create that prop with these limited resources. And so then they actually implement that prop once it's designed and built into their final readers theater. So taking it a step further for those gifted students who are comfortable reading, they read above grade level, they're awesome with their performance, but then also maybe they're really gifted in performance, but they have a really low reading level, right? And so we're still being able to service those students and kind of focusing heavily with them on being able to speak clearly and read those and being able to memorize and things like that to all together create this culminating scene that has multiple aspects of theater within it. And so that is something that I just want to challenge all teachers, and that I kind of say in our meetings here is with arts integration. Yeah, pull out a reader's theater. That's awesome. But also, are they just standing up in a line and reading it? Because to me, that's reading. That's not reader's theater. Theater is acting, right? So we need to push our students further in becoming those characters. Maybe it is, we talk to them about, all right, here is your character. I want you to do a character analysis now. So now that you know you can read it, it's awesome. While I'm working with these students, I want you to take this and I want you to find out more about your character, right? Maybe it doesn't say it in the script, but reading between the lines, what do you know because of this person's reaction? And how can you change your acting to ensure that you are creating a more believable character? So just taking it those next steps with readers theater and not just stopping at the line, right? Because that's what we're seeing a lot of, is a lot of students are standing on a line and they're reading, which is great. I love that they're reading, but take it a step further and have them act it out and create those levels. So then one of the big things that all of these things seem to that takes a lot of time to prep, right? And so I have my math GT students, my social studies GT students, my English ones, they're coming in next, and my visual arts are right after that. I don't have time for all of that. Okay, so how about we combine them all into one, right? And we have this proven facts that the arts drive that instruction. And that they boost those test scores. So why not bring them all together and teach whatever we're doing through the arts? So then what I do is a thematic unit of exploration. And so this is exploration of theater. However, it could be exploration of the arts. It could be exploration of science, and we're going to incorporate the arts into it. But what I do is I break it down into some similar sessions, and each session I'm focusing on a different area of theater. So we're doing session 1, exploring scenic design. So what I do is I give the students, we first start out by talking about what a scenic designer is. I give them something like this. It's a stage map, and it gives dimensions of their stage. So then I talk about scale models, and our scale models are 1/2 inch for every foot. So how can we take this set and convert this using fractions over to what it would actually be if we put it on the stage? How big is that set going to be, right? If we have the stage dimensions, which is what is on this, the actual footage, how are we going to be able to take that now down and do it 1/2 scale size? So then once they do that, we take it to the next step I give them a script, a short script, a 2-page script. And generally I say, okay, this is your script, read it through, think about what you would want your scenic design to be. They think about it. They say something awesome. And then I say, okay, now it's set in Colombia, right? Oh, dang, I don't know what that is, right? So now you're going to take it another step. Go look at that country up. Think about what does the flooring look like in that country, right? During the time period of 1950. What does the flooring look like? What do the houses look like? Are they very bright colors or are they more bland? Is it brick? Is it stucco? Right? So these different things, and I just have them jot it down on a piece of paper. I saw green walls, pink walls, very different than here in America in my suburban neighborhood, right? And so they're writing down all these ideas, and then they're creating a different design of this. They design that sketch, they show it to me, it looks awesome. I provide some feedback, and then we move to the next day, that third day, where we begin building an actual model of the set. So now I provide them with a ton of STEM supplies, and we actually measure out the stage on a piece of poster board to these exact measurements of the scale model that they did 2 days ago when they took this down to scale. We're using those dimensions that they had received and putting it on the poster, using that as our stage floor. They're creating that stage floor, whether that's tile, hardwood, and then they begin building the set that their story will live in. The next day, we continue working on that. When we get to session 3, we begin exploring the acting and the character development of that scene that they have just created the scenic scale model for. So now this is what your set looks like. Now we're going to dig into these characters, and with this set, how can you stage this show? So then they're going to create those short scenes, perform those scenes, provide feedback to one another, and then they create their own script. If they could rewrite it, how would they do it? And so by this point, they've looked at a set, they've looked at costume design, they can create a costume for their character, exploring acting and character development, and now they're going to be able to rewrite that story how they would have it, looking and based off those general playwriting rules that we have when we're looking at a script as far as implementing stage directions, scene numbers, things like that. So then we move a step further, and this is something you don't have to do the last two. I just do them for fun because it's something that they really look forward to. It's just that extra engagement. I get makeup design kits for all of my students. And we actually talk about makeup design. Is your character old? Are they young? Are they dirty? Right? And so then we talk about how can we make our design look like that. We do general stage makeup, and then we do character stage makeup where they're able to see this is what I look like. And they actually apply the makeup, and then they are that character. And then that last day, if you could apply lights, generally those technical elements are the last thing that get applied to a show. So if you could use lighting design, how would you change the mood of the lighting, or use lighting colors to change the mood of the show? So we kind of just focus on all those different areas. And in the process, we're incorporating social studies, writing, math, drama, visual arts, as well as dance. A lot of times as they're incorporating that in their acting and character development. So that is like a lesson that is huge, and it takes, if done within, like if you're receiving them for 30 minutes once a week, it could take a long time. But during that process, you're covering tons of GT areas, and they're going really in depth and then taking that and applying it later in that same unit, and in the process exploring the world of theater. Some other general ideas, props design. Like I said, I do a lot of props design with my creative drama students, which is generally K through 2. And that's generally how I see those identifications begin to pop up in those students who really are with it. They love performing. They love creating those different things for their students to implement into their scenes. So I'm seeing a lot of that stuff as they're beginning those props designs and that creative drama, guiding them through picture books. Next one, character passion projects. I have them create a Google slide based on one character in a musical, And I want you to tell me all about that character. Role play, incorporate it within mathematics, right? We're going to play a register. We're going to play with money, right? Maybe we do this with second grade students who are in the PTP. We're looking to see if we can identify them in drama. How is their role play, right? We're seeing math through that as well. Creative drama, K-2. I do a lot of picture books, guiding them through the story, and not only just reading the story, but then becoming the story and me narrating that story while they act that story out. And then I do a lot of theater visits and program visits within my school. One thing that I would say is the best resource for any GT teacher who is looking in visual and performing arts is I currently partner with Broadway Across Louisville at the Kentucky Center for the Arts. And what we do is I wrote a grant to do this, but with them, we create opportunities for students to go see the Broadway National Tours in Louisville. So I'm taking my students, I just took them last week to see Cats. In February, I'm taking some students to see Come From Away. And then at the end of May, beginning of June, I'm taking students to see Hamilton. So we're taking these students and they're experiencing all of these things that they're learning about: set design, lighting design, and generally we're creating those backstage experiences for them to see it in play. So if you can get in touch with Broadway Across Louisville, when you go to their site and you hit their contact email at the bottom, that is probably one of the biggest things that I do with my students that puts everything like into perspective for them. They're looking and they're in awe of it. They're loving it. And they're finally seeing those connections that they've made in their thematic units and in their classrooms with social studies, things like that, actually come out and play on the stage. So that's the different resources that I use. Again, one of those was Drama Notebook. That's the first one I talked about. Broadway Across Louisville, thematic units, doing the exploration of theater, and then using creative drama as a focus for our K-2 students when trying to identify within PTP and looking to move them into GT beginning in classification for 4th and 5th grade. If there are any questions, I have included my email right there where you can contact me if you want the lesson plans for that thematic unit. They're all written out. I can send those your way if you would like a specific contact, or maybe you're like, hey, I would love to do lighting design. Do you have any resources for it? Please, please, please contact me. I have a huge Google Drive. All it takes is one click and a share. And I'm certainly willing to share any of those resources that help further the arts and gifted identification and just arts integration in general. So that is all that I have. And I thank you all so much for having me.
Thank you so much, Austin. Oh, the arts, integration of the arts with the content areas, that's where it's at. Makes so much difference for so many children. It makes school the reason for some kids to come to school. So
absolutely.
So many ideas. Thank you so much. And thank you for being so generous and willing to share all of your resources. And, you know, that's one of the wonderful things about the technology and what we've learned in the last couple of years is how to put so much online and share with our colleagues. So thank you so much.
I have a question for you, Austin. Thank you so much. If you're still on, Austin.
Yeah.
So have you ever worked with any of the content with early childhood, with preschool specifically in their dramatic play areas in their classroom? Have you ever worked through any of that?
We actually don't do preschool within our class. So I haven't worked with the preschoolers at all. But I do a lot of just guided creative drama in my classes. And that's kind of where I'm seeing the storytelling happening with those students and being able to not only use our voice, but using our body and our imagination to create those characters and then act them out.
Okay. Well, thank you so much. It's incredible. I've just jotted down all kinds of ideas and I'm sure everyone has. It's just really opened up my mind. I thank you personally.
Yeah, thank you so much.
And I think I saw Jimmy Korn hop on. We can get Austin's screen off here so Jimmy can get his loaded. There we go. Hi, Jimmy.
Hey, how are you today?
I'm great. We are excited to hear from you today. Jimmy is in Nelson County. He is at Old Kentucky Home Middle School. And he's the Odyssey of the Mind coordinator there, as well as the curriculum specialist, which I believe they call backpack leader there. And we have been working with Jimmy because we get to host a big Odyssey of the Mind meet this spring. And so we wanted Jimmy to talk to you about this wonderful opportunity for students. So thank you, Jimmy, for being with us.
Hey, whew, I don't know about you all, but I'm ready for January to be over. It has been a little wild and crazy here since we've been back from Christmas. Gosh, today I've been doing iReady data chats all day, and I'm going back to do them again after I get off of here. So it is just a whirlwind. But when February hits, it seems like there's suddenly a little time to breathe. I'm hoping it stays that way. Like she said, I am the curriculum specialist, the backpack leader at Old Kentucky Home Middle School. This is my first year in that position. For the past 15 years, I was the high school band director down at Corbin. And so that was what I did for a really long time. So I've kind of stepped over to the dark side of administration, so to speak, and then stepped into the world of middle school, which a lot of people think is crazy, but I really don't mind that age level. I think they're great. And so I've been a part of Odyssey of the Mind since high school. I have judged for the past, 20 years now. I judged internationally and answer clarifications. I'm on the state Odyssey board. So that kind of gives you a little bit of background of me and where I come from, and you'll see some of that in this presentation. So Odyssey of the Mind is an international creative problem solving program, and it teaches 21st century skills. It's a perfect partner for STEAM standards. And what I really like about it, while I'm talking to you all, is it can service every GT student from math to leadership. It's all covered in this program. So it's very diverse, and it really has a niche for every child to kind of find what they're good at. Kentucky Odyssey of the Mind teaches kids to imagine, create, and inspire. And so that's the lens that I'm going to use as we go through this presentation. So OM empowers students to imagine. It's not just recite data and make new connections in powerful and creative ways. So frequently people have some sort of idea about Odyssey will suddenly relate it maybe to like academic team or to Governor's Cup. And while those are great programs and things, this is a completely different ball game in the way that kids solve problems and use their knowledge. This is all about divergent thinking. This is not one correct answer. So this is about kids coming together and creating a product and finding solutions to problems that are different than their peers in other teams. One way that they do this in the competition is they do something called spontaneous. At the competition, they're given a problem on the spot that they have to solve. And this is something that can be solved in just a few minutes. It's a very short process, but it really gets you to see how kids' brains work and react, see their creative flexibility. It might be a verbal problem. The example I give all the time is they might give them a minute to think and 2 minutes to respond, and you need to name things that go up and down. So a more common answer would be something like an elevator, a basketball. A more creative answer might be my mother's blood pressure whenever my parents are over on the weekend, or my friends are over on the weekends. So they're trying to look for different ways that kids can bend and think of that. Hands-on problems are where kids usually have to take items and manipulate them to create something, or well, a good example of that I would say is kids will have lots of items like straws, paper clips, spaghetti, foil, cotton balls, just all these really random cheap things. I usually keep a big tub of it for my kids, and they might have to build a tower that supports a ping pong ball, and the higher the tower is, the more points you get. Or they might have to launch something into a grid that's on the floor in order to get points. Verbal hands-on, kids might have to create something. They might be given a lot of those small items, and they might have to create a pet. And then they're supposed to talk about the pet amongst each other afterwards and give responses based on that. So you can, once again, really see the creative flexibility. I think about MacGyver and how he would use, like, I'm dating myself, but thinking about like MacGyver and how he could like take a paper clip and like blow up a building. Like you kind of get that sort of thinking as you're going through with all this, but it really increases general problem solving skills. some examples and pictures that I have of this that I wanted to share with you all. I always like seeing what kids do. Odyssey is sometimes really hard to explain. It's a lot easier to just kind of drop you in. But in this particular problem, kids are sitting around the table and they have one of those like wreaths that you can get, that green circle there that you would decorate, but instead they had different baggies, and in their baggies they had different items, whether it was, you know, pipe cleaners or markers, popsicle sticks. And what they had to do was tell a story, and each person had to go in order. And as they told the story, they had to add to the wreath. So this first one up here was a sports one. You can kind of see the football goals that they made out of the straws and the little fans here. This one in the middle was, I believe it was some story about a princess that had royalty in it because they made a crown. That's what that was meant to be. I know that this down here in the bottom left, they made like some rainbows and it was a portal. These kids over here actually used the outside of the wreath, didn't necessarily add to the wreath. They took it a step further and did some stuff along the outside. And the team up here in the top started adding stuff in the middle as they went. So it's really interesting to see how kids feed off of each other, how they visually create the things in their story with minimal materials. It's really fun just to see kids' wheels turn with that. In this particular problem, kids were given straws, paper clips, toothpicks, a piece of paper, some other small items, and a box of raisins. And they were told that they had to suspend the raisins off the ground, and they got, you know, points for how high the raisins were suspended. They couldn't pierce the raisins and they couldn't use the box. So down here, these kids were really smart with the way that they took the triangle, took the paper and made it into a prism. You made that triangle shape so it could support weight. And they kind of made a gurney out of the straws, and they had some sticky labels, and they put the raisins on the sticky labels to let it suspend over the table. Over here on the right, whoops, didn't mean to do that. I've got a touchpad and I'm still not used to it. Over here on the right, the team set up a base with the paper and the sticky labels and the straws, and then kind of made a Christmas ornament. I kind of laugh. It's like a hammock, but it's also kind of like a raisin taco. They kind of made a taco out of the paper and then pierced it with the toothpicks here to be able to hang it. And so that was another really creative way. They didn't get quite as many raisins in it, but they were able to get lots of points for that. This particular example is kids had to build bridges and hang things from the bridge between the two blocks. So some teams decide to stand them up very tall. Some people decide to keep them lower to the ground. And the kids got really smart and they were like, we don't have to build a bridge. Let's just set a pencil between it. And then that connects them. So then it was easier to hang, you know, a ping pong ball from, or able to hang the random heavier items like race cars and stuff. And so the more items that were hanging, the more points they got. They were smart and used these little tiny cups as buckets. And they did some really cool things with the items they had to suspend them in the air in that one also. So the next thing that I like to think about with Odyssey is that it actually lets kids create. You know, I think in the classroom, to no fault of our own, as someone that was in the classroom for 15 years in an arts classroom, even when I was teaching humanities or other things, I get really caught up in just doing the work. We feel like we're doing a checklist, and we don't always get beyond just remembering and understanding information or even analyzing it. We never really get to where like kids make things and they create things. And so that's what's really great about Odyssey, is it provides a platform for students to not just speak about their ideas or talk about their ideas or write them down, but actually create and bring them to life. So the core of Odyssey is that it publishes 6 different problems each year, and each problem has a different creative emphasis, a different intelligence that it kind of focuses on. And those 6 problems are as follows. Problem 1 is always a vehicle problem. Students have to create a vehicle to perform certain tasks. Some years it's the students have to drive the vehicle, and then some years it's students have to create a power source, whether that's they use batteries or rubber bands or just any other sort of kinetic or potential energy. The vehicle over here on the right, on the bottom, was designed by a 4th and 5th grade team from Murray Elementary out in Western Kentucky. They actually placed 4th at World Finals. I wish I had a better picture of this from their coach, but there are rolling pins on the bottom of this. And this particular thing was actually meant to be, if I remember correctly, it was kind of like a wagon that went behind the main vehicle. but they made it out of a laundry hamper, added some other stuff to it, but the wheels on the bottom are rolling pins that you would find in the kitchen. Problem 2 tends to be technical in nature. Students have to create a device that completes certain tasks. So it might be something that, I remember one year we had a chameleon problem. So the device had to change its appearance 3 times to blend into the scenery. One year they had to create a haunted house, and the special effects had to be technical that they used in it. Problem 3 is classical. Students are challenged to create their own twist on classical works of art and literature. It might be studying Da Vinci, and so they're going to have to recreate Da Vinci works of art in like creative ways with a twist. It might be studying Greek gods and goddesses, and they have to bring those gods to life in like a more modern plot twist kind of way. But it always focuses on classical works of art and literature. Problem 4 is a structure problem where kids are more like engineering. They're taking balsa wood and glue, really thin balsa wood, and creating 8-inch structures that have to fit within certain parameters, like a certain height and a certain weight. They're only allowed to use balsa wood and glue, and they design that structure to then be tested with weights. As you can see over here on the right, the picture's cut off a little bit, but the tiny structures down there beneath all that, and they're testing it with weight. The ones at World Finals, these little tiny 8-inch structures will hold anywhere from like Goodyears or somewhere between 800 and 1,200 pounds. So the kids really figure out some awesome engineering techniques whenever they dive into that problem. Problem 5 is a performance problem. It's sketch comedy. I tend to tell people that it's kind of like Saturday Night Live. Students are challenged to create a humorous performance about a given situation. Last year, I think it was last year, was a superhero cliffhanger. So they had to like start at the cliffhanger and then work their way backwards through a superhero story that had to have humorous characters. This year it's circus based, but they always have something really fun to do in that problem. Really focuses a lot on like building sets and costumes and creating characters. It's a lot of storytelling in that one. Problem 6 is primary. We have a problem that is dedicated just to the tiny tots, as I call it, kindergarten through 2nd grade. It just really introduces the kids to problem solving. It's non-competitive. They come to the competitions and present, and we give them feedback and just encourage them and get them excited about doing things on their own. One thing that I didn't mention in all this, when kids are solving these problems, there is a budget that every problem has a different set amount that kids can't spend over that amount. So it might be like $135 for a problem, and kids have to operate within those parameters and like submit a cost sheet. And they solve this problem by performing an 8-minute skit that meets all the requirements. So it's a small 8-minute presentation that kids give their solution. This year's problems, I'm just going to do a real quick visit to this site, just some synopsis here on odysseyofthemind.com. Our first problem this year, the vehicle problem, is called Escape Room, and it's based on like escape rooms, how we all go in escape rooms and have fun with that. I don't know if all of you all have, but my friend circle is like really obsessed with them. But kids have to build a vehicle that finds a way to get out of tough situations and goes into like different rooms. So it's like a grid on the floor that they then have to like progress through. Technical problem this year is all about creating an invention that helps the environment in some way, and it's sponsored by Arm & Hammer. Problem 3 is a musical problem. Being a music person, I think this is awesome, kind of taking the idea of Hamilton, and the kids have to create a musical with 3 songs in it that focuses on a not so well-known historical figure. So they get to create sets and then these songs, and it's just like a little mini musical they get to put on. The structure problem is really cool this year. It's called Matryoshka structure. They have to build structures inside of structures inside of structures, just like the little Russian nesting dolls. Way over my head, I am not the structure person, I'm the arts person. And problem 5 is a circus, where teams have to create a normal world and a circus world, and they have different animals and acts and funny characters that they run into in that. Let me make sure I don't hit the wrong button as I drag this back out of the way and try to get back to where I was. Sorry about that. I can't see my tabs because of where I moved everything. All right, and there's a little video there that just previews this year's problems. I'm not going to worry about that right now. I'm going to keep going to make sure we stay on time and have some time for questions. Like I said, Odyssey is all about the kids creating. So a program pillar is that there's no outside assistance. And this is what I think really sets this problem or this program apart from others, is that you as the coach cannot help the kids solve the problem, in the sense of you can't give them answers, you can't write the script for them, you can't make things for them. Everything has to be 100% student created. You can teach them skills. If they're working on, they need to like recreate a painting, you can teach them how to paint and show them how to paint, move their hand, do it you need to, but then they need to take those skills and create their own thing that's going to be used for the competition. So you could bring in a choreographer to show them dance steps and dance moves, but then the kids have to actually create their dance that they use in their presentation. So it's all about giving the kids the skills and tools they need to be successful, but then they've got to create the solution on their own. Kind of the whole, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink. You give the kids the tools and encourage them to use them correctly. But the really good thing about this is that it helps students develop a sense of pride and confidence in their skills and abilities. I think kids over the past 16 years that I've been in education are more and more afraid of failure. And I don't mean like failing, getting an F. I just mean like something as simple as getting the wrong answer. Kids don't know how to process failure sometimes. But I think that whenever you get into a creative mindset, that when you're experimenting, there's going to be failure, and kids are going to deal with that failure. They're going to figure out how to pick themselves up, dust themselves off, analyze, and move forward. And through that, kids gain confidence. So it really helps lift the fog of fear, as I say, and self-doubt, and kids become more confident in their skills and abilities. These are some examples of some really awesome things that I see at World Finals. These are some Division III teams here. At the top over here on the left, a team from New York took just strips of reed and wrapped them around like a really loose skeletal structure to create these like little farm animals, these bulls. Those really are about waist high. The big one is in the middle. Two really cool things here. That oversized Leonardo da Vinci head is made out of PVC pipe that a Division III team like heated and melded. And they took a pool liner. Like my mom didn't like the pool water cold, and my mom has like a big blue pool cover. I shouldn't say liner, pool cover that kind of keeps the water insulated and warm. One of their parents had one they were getting rid of, and they took that and made the skin that's on the face. They took it and cut it and molded it to the PVC pipe frame, and then painted it to create the face. This little guy here in the middle that's standing in front of him is a recreation of his underwater suit, his like scuba diver suit, and it's made out of fire hose from a fire department. One of the students had a father that worked at the fire department. They were getting rid of the hose, and if you slice the hose up the middle, it turns out to be this really nice like flat rubber one side, canvas the other side material. And so they made that entire outfit out of that. Over on the far right was this really awesome crocodile outfit that the team made. It's on like multi-directional wheels. It's like low to the ground like a pallet. And they took cardboard and cut it layer by layer to make that crocodile head. You can kind of see the layers there. You would lay your upper body in the front half, that's me inside of it, and you put your arms out the front to actually crawl on the ground, and then your legs were in the back. It had a back half, another piece that your legs went in and didn't touch the ground. It was the tail, and it had multi-directional wheels on it. So when you propelled yourself forward by crawling, your back end moved and swayed like a crocodile. It was really cool to see that come to life on stage. On the left here, this is a middle school team from Poland that created this entire work of art over here. It's actually a puppet. His mouth would move out of dryer lint. They collected dryer lint for months and then sorted it by how light or dark it was and created that portrait. That portrait is probably like about a 2 foot by 3 foot, not canvas, but like a piece of cardboard that it's on. Those are its dimensions. On the right, that is a Mona Lisa made by a high school team, made completely out of chewing gum. They chewed charcoal to turn it black, and they just used all different kinds of chewing gum to create her. That is probably about a 3 foot by 4 foot portrait there. It's a huge amount of chewing gum and super heavy, super gross. I still have it in my house. It was one of my Corbin teams that actually made that. So I kind of already spoke about this in the other slide. I just really can't speak enough to where Odyssey like teaches kids how to handle failure and how to problem solve and to move forward. And I think it's really important that as a coach, when you do this program, making it a learning moment, giving them the chance to try again and to improve their ideas. I mean, that is the creative process. Even as teachers, we're making our lessons, we're doing things, we realize what works, what doesn't, we update, we try again. And kids don't always have that opportunity in the classroom. It's do this worksheet, do this assignment, here's your grade, we're moving on. We don't always give kids that opportunity to think through it and completely redo it. And a lot of times we're just crunched by a clock, and that's really no fault of our own sometimes as we're trying to fit everything in. But Odyssey really gives kids the opportunity to do that between competitions and the planning process. So it's just a really awesome aspect of the program. The last thing that I like to talk about with Odyssey is that it inspires. You provide the spark, but the students ignite the blaze. Students learn from each other. They inspire one another to exceed and become better, and they celebrate their own gifts. And they don't always compare themselves to others because they find out along the way that they have different talents and abilities that they maybe didn't find in the normal classroom. Learning is communal. Some people like to sit down and just do their own stuff, but so many more sparks fly when you're learning from each other and kids are doing things in groups. Like I said, students find their strengths and they simultaneously see and learn the strengths of their peers, and they understand that we're all individuals and we all have awesome things to offer, that they don't have to worry about being a test score. They don't have to worry about doing everything right, that they have a role, that they have a skill, that they have an ability, and Odyssey lets them refine that they normally don't get the moment to have in the normal classroom. So last thing I wanted to talk about is come to our shadow program. We've had a little snafu. She was just talking about how the Center for Gifted Studies was going to be hosting the state tournament this year, and we've had to cancel and try to maybe do that next year. It's a long story, but coming out towards WKU, which we love doing and love our relationship with the Center for Gifted Studies. You all know COVID has been crazy. We normally have 15 to 20 teams from Western Kentucky, from Bowling Green all the way out to like Murray and Paducah. And because of COVID this year, those teams didn't all materialize. We only have about 2 or 3 teams out west. And we like to rotate the tournament around, but especially come out west for those teams. And this year, most of our teams stayed in Northern Kentucky and Southeastern Kentucky. And so we're moving the tournament back this way for this year. So we're going to have our state tournament at Thomas Nelson High School on Saturday, March the 26th. And hopefully next year we're going to be in the talks to try to bring it back out that way. But the shadow program is a really awesome opportunity for anyone that's maybe interested in the program to see it live. We bring you in and you kind of get a behind the scenes tour. You get to go see every problem. You get to walk with a team through what they experience, from like check-in to pre-staging to performance. You get to talk to coaches, you get to talk to kids, but you really get dropped in the deep end of the pool with floaties on. And we kind of take you around so you can kind of see what you'd be getting into if you decided to join the program. There is an info sheet today that I would like to throw over in the chat in just a second. It is just a real quick, hey, what's your name in school? And if you would like more information, or if you're good, I like to keep track of who we've presented to and who's heard about us. It doesn't hurt my feelings at all if you get on there and say, I have all the information I need right now. Thank you. I just like keeping things for my record. So when I throw that link over in the chat in a minute, I'd appreciate if you all just kind of click on it and do your couple little clicks so I can keep that stuff. Find us and follow us. You can find us online at kyudom.com. We have a Facebook page. We have Instagram and Twitter. They've been a little bit dormant as we've been going through COVID, trying to come out of that and shake the dust off of it. I think we're all kind of in that boat right now. Or you can email me any questions directly at jimmy.corn@nelson.kyschools.us. And so I'm going to go over here and hit paste. There's the form if you don't care to click on it. And I've got a couple of minutes left. I know I kind of went really fast to kind of cram that in. But does anybody have any questions or comments?
Hello, Mr. Corn. This is Hannah Elin from Russell County. How are you?
Hey, Hannah, how are you?
Good. I'm excited to see you. I'm sorry. I've just got a quick question. Is the shadow program, of course, Miss Susie and I were able to participate that in a couple of years, and it really opened our eyes. We would like to this year. Is that something that we could bring a potential team to observe the day? Okay, because that is our goal. We are trying to do those activities right now to try to get the parent meet to kind of set up a team. And I was going to ask you, are regionals still set for February 26th, or is it just the state?
I was going to say what we decided to do. We had a long discussion just at about this time a week ago. Because a lot of teams didn't materialize with COVID this year, like we're down about 50% this year. People just, schools with regulations at the beginning of the year, and especially with the surge right now of things, we decided that we were just advancing everybody to state. So there is no regional competition on February 26th. We're just having everybody at the state tournament this year and doing one tournament instead of an elimination and moving forward, because only a few teams would have been eliminated. So we just decided to put everybody at state.
Well, great. I will reach out to you in an email with a few more questions then about how that would set up if we were to bring a team to kind of shadow that day to kind of just observe. Thank you so much.
Awesome. No problem, Hannah.
Well, thank you so much, Jimmy. Odyssey of the Mind is such a wonderful program and has so many different aspects to it.
Yes, and what I want to just make sure I hit home with everybody is there's a million different ways to implement the program. We have some people, I think Garrett County implements it through their GT program, and she starts it, I think, in like October maybe, and they work on it through their pull out, or I'm not exactly sure how she has her schedule set up, but she does it through her enrichment time. Some places like here, we do it after school as an after school program, but we used our gifted list to do recommendations and kind of recruit kids through that. So if you're sitting there looking at it thinking that's a lot for me to do, I mean, you could just simply help coordinate and help find a coach and find somebody else, or be able to do it after school and not necessarily do it during your time that you have. But it's extremely flexible, and I'm willing to brainstorm with anyone that is interested in doing it and just trying to find the right amount of time to do it.
Thank you so much. Well, Jamie, we're at the end of our agenda, and we are basically out of time. The one thing I have left I want to highlight is the Kentucky Association for Gifted Education virtual conference is coming up in February, February 22 to 23. And we are working really hard, getting a great list of presenters and speakers. The theme is Emerging Leaders, Entrepreneurs, and Creators. And Dr. Del Sigley is one of our presenters. He's the director of the Renzulli Center at the University of Connecticut and is a wonderful speaker. Dr. April Wells, she's from the second largest school district in Illinois. She's outside of Chicago, and she does a great job of talking about access and equity, and just a fabulous speaker. And then we're going to have a panel of Kentucky leaders, entrepreneurs, and creators. And we're putting that panel together. So go to the CAGE website. Registration is open, and it's virtual, so you can watch from your classroom or your living room and learn a lot.
Thank you so much, Mary. And thank you to everyone. It's been an incredible group of presenters and presentations today. It's just, there's so many opportunities out there for our students. It's very heartwarming. So I keep thinking of all the potential for the things that we've heard today. So let me ask, is there anything else for the good of the order? We do have an exit slip on our agenda. We ask you to click that link, please, and give us feedback. Let us know what worked, what we need to tweak, and then what you would like to see at our next meeting. Is there anything else for the good of the order, as they say?
Jamie, hi, Mary Evans, it's Kelly Davis. How are you? have a quick question for you about the CAGE conference. You know, I routinely share information with our directors of special ed about upcoming opportunities. Would there be enough sessions that might hit on the needs of twice exceptional children in the CAGE conference for me to put that on our list of potential opportunities for them to share out?
Let me check with our executive director and see. I have not seen the final list of presentations, but let me check and get back with you on that.
Okay, yeah, if you want me to share that out, just let me know, and I do a weekly newsletter, and I'll just keep it rolling in there until, you know, till time for the conference, if it's
Yes.
relevant for them. Thank you.
Sounds good.
It's a great idea.
Mhm.
Is there anything else? Okay, well, thank you. Be safe, stay warm, and have a very productive day. I certainly believe that this time we've spent together has been very productive. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Jamie.
Well, Mary and Tyler, you have, let me close out the recording for us. Hold on.